Warren Buffett spends approximately 80% of his working day reading. Not in meetings, not on calls, not sending emails. Reading annual reports, financial filings, industry publications, newspapers, biographies of business leaders, histories of industries. He estimates he reads between 500 and 1,000 pages every single day, and has done so for over 60 years. That is roughly the equivalent of reading 1 or 2 books every day for 6 decades. But here is what almost nobody who talks about this habit ever mentions. The reading is not the point. The reading is the input system for the actual habit, the one that sits underneath all 5 of the disciplines we are covering today. And understanding what that underlying habit actually is changes how you think about everything else Buffett does. In this video, I am going to walk you through the 5 daily habits that Buffett attributes his success to, drawn from decades of shareholder letters, interviews, and observations from the people who have worked closest to him. Habit 3 is the one that surprises people the most. Not because it is unknown, most serious Buffett followers have heard it mentioned, but because the full explanation of why he does it, and what it actually produces, is almost never fully articulated. Stay with me. Before we get into the habits, let me explain why habits, rather than strategy, intelligence, or access, are the right frame for understanding Buffett's success. Buffett still lives in the house he bought in Omaha in 1958 for $31,500. He drives himself to work. He stops at McDonald's most mornings for breakfast. His order depending on how the market looks when he wakes up. When the market is down, he treats himself to the more expensive option. When things look uncertain, he saves a few dollars on breakfast. He has no computer on his desk. He uses a flip phone. He does not send emails. He goes to bed early and wakes up early. To most people, this sounds like the eccentric behavior of an older man who has not kept up with how the modern world works. But people who know Buffett well describe it as something more deliberate, a specific, conscious design of his daily environment to maximize the conditions for clear thinking. Charlie Munger, who knew Buffett better than almost anyone, observed that Buffett's most remarkable quality was not his intelligence, though he is genuinely brilliant. It was the fact that he had maintained essentially the same daily habits, the same mental disciplines, and the same investment approach for over 60 years without meaningful deviation. Munger called this consistency of habit across 6 decades, through every kind of market environment and personal circumstance, the most underappreciated source of Buffett's compounding returns. The habits did not guarantee success in any single year. They made exceptional performance over 60 years almost mathematically inevitable. Here are the 5. Reading 500 pages a day to build compounding knowledge. The habit. Buffett reads approximately 500 pages every day. He has described this as the single most important habit in his investing life, the foundation from which every other discipline operates. His reading is deliberately broad and historically deep. He reads every annual report of every major business he is interested in, not just the highlights but the full document, including the footnotes, which he says often contain the most important disclosures. He reads 5 newspapers daily. He reads extensively in business history, financial history, and the biographies of business leaders across industries he studies. He has said that knowledge works like compound interest, it builds on itself. Every business history you read makes the next business history more comprehensible. Every financial crisis you study makes the next crisis more recognizable. The reading is not just information accumulation. It is the construction of a mental database that becomes richer and more interconnected with every edition. What it produces. Buffett frequently cites obscure historical examples: the salad oil scandal of 1963, the South Sea bubble of 1720, the railroad speculations of the 1870s, that have direct relevance to current investment situations. This historical pattern recognition is not available from current financial media. It can only be built through years of reading primary sources and historical accounts. When he made his Goldman Sachs investment during the 2008 financial crisis, he later described having a clear mental model of how financial panics typically resolve. Not from a spreadsheet model, but from having read about virtually every major financial panic in American history. The reading, accumulated over 60 years, produced a knowledge base that made the 2008 situation more comprehensible to him than to almost any other investor. What you build. Commit to reading the annual report of every company you own or are seriously considering, the full document, not just the headline numbers. Block 1 hour every morning before the market opens. Read one business history or investor biography per month. You will not read 500 pages a day, but the habit of sustained, deliberate reading, maintained consistently for years, will build a knowledge base that is not available to investors who only consume financial headlines. Habit 2 is about how Buffett spends the hours he is not reading, and the specific practice that most people who study his schedule completely overlook. Thinking, protecting time to think without interruption. The habit. When Buffett is not reading, he is thinking. Not in a meeting, not on a call, not managing people or reviewing presentations. He has described his ideal day as one where he sits in his office, reads for several hours, then sits quietly for several more hours processing what he has read, making connections, questioning assumptions, working through the implications of what the businesses he has been studying are telling him. His office at Berkshire headquarters is famously quiet. He does not attend most meetings. He does not have a computer generating a constant stream of information. He has deliberately constructed his professional environment to maximize uninterrupted thinking time, at the direct expense of the kind of visible activity that most people associate with productive work. Why he structures it this way. Buffett has been explicit about his reasoning. He believes that the quality of an investment decision is primarily determined by the quality of thinking that preceded it, not by the speed of the decision, the sophistication of the financial model, or the number of meetings held to discuss it. Deep thinking requires uninterrupted time. Interruptions, meetings, emails, phone calls, do not just take the time they occupy. They destroy the mental state that makes sustained analytical thinking possible. A 2-hour block of uninterrupted thinking produces qualitatively different results from 8 15-minute periods scattered through the day, even though the total time is the same. By protecting large blocks of uninterrupted time, structuring his day around thinking rather than around activity, Buffett ensures that his most important decisions are made from a state of deep, unhurried analytical clarity rather than from the reactive, interrupted state in which most business decisions are made. What you build. Identify 2 hours in your day when you will not check email, social media, or news. Use this time for your most important analytical work, reading about the businesses you own, thinking through investment theses, reviewing whether your current positions still make sense. Protect this time aggressively. The quality of your investment decisions will correlate more directly with the quality of your uninterrupted thinking time than with almost any other variable you can control. Habit 3, the one I promised. The discipline that surprises people not because it is unknown but because the full explanation of what it actually produces is almost never articulated. Saying no, the most profitable word in Buffett's vocabulary. The peak habit, what most people miss. Buffett says no more consistently, more deliberately, and more profitably than any other aspect of his daily practice. He says no to almost every acquisition brought to him. He says no to almost every investment pitch. He says no to speaking invitations, board seats, advisory roles, and media appearances that would consume his time without contributing to his core work. He says no to businesses that are outside his circle of competence, regardless of how compelling the opportunity sounds from the outside. Most people who know this about Buffett frame it as a discipline, something admirable but difficult, a form of willpower applied to resist temptation. That framing is wrong. Buffett does not experience saying no as willpower. He experiences it as the natural consequence of having a clear framework for what he is looking for, and recognizing that most things are simply not it. What it actually produces. The financial consequence of Buffett's habit of saying no is enormous and systematically underappreciated. Every investment he does not make preserves capital and optionality for the investments he does make. The 1963 American Express position, 40% of his fund, was only possible because he had not dispersed that capital across dozens of other positions in the preceding years. The Coca-Cola position in 1988, $1 billion at a time when $1 billion was an extraordinary concentration, was only possible because Berkshire had not deployed that capital into lesser opportunities that presented themselves throughout the 1970s and early 1980s. Munger described Buffett's habit of saying no as his most important financial discipline, more important than any analytical skill. Not because good opportunities are rare, but because the temptation to deploy capital into mediocre opportunities is constant, and the accumulation of capital preserved for genuinely exceptional ones is how extraordinary returns are actually generated. The habit is not really about saying no. It is about recognizing that deploying capital into a mediocre opportunity is not a neutral decision. It is a permanent, often irreversible allocation of resources that forecloses better uses of the same capital. The specific mechanism Buffett uses. Buffett uses a specific decision framework for evaluating whether to say yes or no to any major investment opportunity. He asks whether the business is within his circle of competence, whether the competitive position is durable, whether the management is excellent, and whether the price offers a genuine margin of safety. If any of these conditions is not clearly met, not probably met, not almost met, but clearly met, the answer is no. He has said that in 60 years of investing, almost every significant mistake he has made involved a situation where one of these conditions was not clearly met, and he invested anyway. Almost every exceptional return came from situations where all four conditions were unambiguously present. What you build. Write down your own 4 conditions for a yes investment decision, the specific criteria that must all be clearly met before you deploy capital. Make them specific enough that a reasonable person could evaluate whether they are met or not. Then apply them consistently. The habit of saying no to everything that does not clearly meet all criteria is the foundation of capital preservation, and capital preservation is the foundation of long-term compounding. Habit 4 is about Buffett's relationship with the people around him, and the specific kind of relationship he has cultivated with the managers of Berkshire's businesses. Delegating completely, trusting managers to run their businesses. The habit. Berkshire Hathaway owns more than 60 subsidiary companies. Buffett is the CEO of all of them, in the sense that all of them report ultimately to him. And yet, he speaks to most of their managers perhaps once or twice a year. He does not attend their operational meetings. He does not review their weekly reports. He does not second-guess their hiring decisions or their capital expenditure plans. He buys a business specifically because he believes the management is exceptional, and then he gets entirely out of the way and lets them manage it. This is one of the most unusual operating models in the history of large corporations. Most CEOs of companies Berkshire size manage through elaborate reporting structures, regular executive meetings, KPI dashboards, and strategic planning cycles. Buffett manages through trust, autonomy, and annual letters. Why it works. Buffett's rationale is straightforward. He bought these businesses because the managers were exceptional. If they were exceptional when he bought the business, they do not need him to tell them how to run it. Interference would not improve their decisions. It would introduce the uncertainty and political complexity that comes with any second-guessing from above. By delegating completely and visibly, by making clear to every manager that Berkshire is not watching their daily decisions, he creates an operating environment where exceptional managers can function exactly as they did before Berkshire bought the business. This also frees Buffett's time entirely for the capital allocation decisions that only he can make. Reading, thinking, and deciding where to deploy the cash that Berkshire's businesses generate. He is doing the work that is uniquely his. Everyone else is doing the work that is uniquely theirs. What you build. In any area of your life where you have delegated a task to a financial advisor, an accountant, an employee, evaluate whether you are genuinely delegating or whether you are delegating in name while continuing to second-guess and interfere in practice. Genuine delegation requires selecting people whose judgment you trust, communicating clear objectives, and then getting out of the way. The interference instinct, checking in constantly, requesting updates, adjusting decisions, is almost always less productive than the original delegation, and communicates distrust to the person you have supposedly empowered. Habit 5 is the most personal, and the one Buffett says has nothing to do with money, but which he credits as the foundation of everything else. Living simply, removing complexity to protect clarity. The habit. Buffett is worth over $100 billion. He lives in a house worth approximately $1.3 million. He drives a modest car. He eats at the same restaurants in Omaha that he has frequented for decades. He does not own a yacht. He does not have a private island. He has lived in the same neighborhood with largely the same daily routines for 60 years. This is not frugality in the conventional sense. He is not saving money he needs to invest. He does not need to save money. He could spend $10 million a day and it would make no material difference to his financial position. His simplicity is something different. It is a deliberate elimination of the cognitive complexity and logistical overhead that comes with a complicated personal life, so that his mental energy is available for the one activity he has decided is most important. What it actually protects. Every major life decision, where to live, what to drive, where to eat, how to spend weekends, consumes cognitive resources. Not enormously individually, but in aggregate, the management of a complicated personal life generates a constant background load of decisions, logistics, and maintenance that consumes attention that could otherwise be available for primary work. Buffett eliminated that background load decades ago by making most of his personal life decisions once and then not revisiting them. Same house, same town, same restaurants, same simple schedule. These are not choices he makes daily. They are defaults he established long ago that now run automatically. The result is that when he sits down to read and think about investments, his mental environment is uncluttered. There is no pending life decision competing for attention. No complicated logistics to manage. No social obligations generated by an elaborate lifestyle to fulfill. Just the work and the full cognitive resources available to do it well. The deeper principle. Buffett has said that he would not trade his life for anyone else's, not because of the wealth, but because of the freedom. He wakes up every day and does exactly what he wants to do. He reads, he thinks, he talks to people he finds interesting. He manages no complicated personal logistics that he did not choose to take on. He has noted that most very wealthy people he knows are, in his assessment, not meaningfully happier than he is, and many are less happy, because they have acquired complicated lives that generate as much stress and obligation as the simpler ones they replaced. The simplicity is not a sacrifice of the good life. It is his specific, deliberate definition of it, optimized not for status or luxury, but for the conditions that make his best work possible. What you build. Identify the 3 areas of your life that generate the most ongoing cognitive load, the decisions, logistics, and maintenance that consume mental energy without producing outcomes you actually value. Consider whether any of them can be simplified, automated, or eliminated. The goal is not minimalism for its own sake. It is freeing cognitive resources for the work and thinking that actually matter to you. Buffett's simplicity is not about spending less. It is about being more selective about where attention goes. 5 Habits, 60 Years. One of the most remarkable records of sustained excellence in the history of finance. Let's bring it together. Habit 1. Read 500 pages a day, not to accumulate facts, but to build a compounding knowledge base that makes each new piece of information richer and more connected than the one before. Habit 2. Protect uninterrupted thinking time. The quality of an investment decision is determined by the quality of the thinking that preceded it. Interruptions do not just take time, they destroy the mental state that makes deep analytical thinking possible. Habit 3. Say no to almost everything. Deploying capital into a mediocre opportunity is not a neutral decision. It is an irreversible allocation that forecloses better uses of the same capital. The most profitable word in Buffett's vocabulary is no. Habit 4. Delegate completely. Hire exceptional people, communicate clear objectives, then get out of the way. Interference does not improve the decisions of people who are already excellent. It introduces uncertainty and communicates distrust. Habit 5. Live simply. Remove the cognitive complexity of a complicated personal life to protect the mental clarity required for primary work. Simplicity is not frugality. It is a deliberate design of life to maximize the conditions for excellent thinking. Here is what ties these 5 habits together. None of them are about intelligence. None of them require exceptional analytical skill or privileged access to information. They are all about environment. Specifically, the deliberate construction of a daily environment that makes excellent thinking the default rather than the exception. Buffett has said that knowledge is like compound interest. The earlier you start building it, the more powerful the compounding becomes. But what he means is something deeper than just reading. The habits that support the knowledge, the protected thinking time, the discipline of no, the complete delegation, the simple life, these are the compounding engine. They do not produce results in a week or a month. Over 10 or 20 years, they produce something that looks, from the outside, like genius. It is not genius. It is 60 years of the same 5 habits, applied consistently without deviation. The next video this week goes to the source of everything we have covered about Buffett across this series, the man who taught him the framework that made all of it possible. Benjamin Graham, the father of value investing, and the story of how a Depression-era Columbia professor created an intellectual system that has generated more investment wealth than any other single thinker in history. That video is right here.